Hi everyone and welcome to Chilled Art. This is a new show where I'm going to talk about art subjects in a chilled kind of way and teach you things that you can apply to your artwork in hopefully short and easy to digest videos. So our first video is going to be about colour ramping because I've already touched on it in a number of previous videos I've done about art. People have been asking about it and it's a really quick and easy way to improve the artwork that you are making in pretty much any style. So colour ramping is the way. Colour ramping is how we make the colours look a bit nicer, and it's easier to explain it by showing an example of painting without colour ramping. So here we have our example. This is Bob the telekinetic with his floating cube and sphere. I've quickly done some flats for it, so here we go. The first thing I would do when doing a digital painting is to sketch out something like this. Put down some flat colours and then let's turn down the opacity on this like this. Okay, so this is about what I'd start with, and okay, so a beginner might well start by, well, okay, we've got yellow here, darker yellow. Okay, yep, that's darker yellow. I'm just going to use Photoshop basic brushes for this because it's easier for you guys to follow along. Oops, I did not mean to do that on that layer. Helps if you select. Right, okay, sorry. Right, okay. Oh, ooh, that doesn't look great, does it? Oh dear. But, you know, maybe it'll improve. Okay, blue. Yeah, blue, okay. Let's just go straight downwards. Blue. Well, that looks less bad. Okay. Maybe this'll all be fine. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Nope. Be just fine. Okay. Red. Darker red. Boom. Down it goes. Okay. Down like this. And there we go. That's a darker red on the shirt. Okay. Brown. Darker brown. Easy. Darker brown. Down like this. And yep. this yeah, obviously forgive the quality of the painting here. I am doing this very, very fast. Right. Oh dear God. Darker skin. No. I don't want to. I don't want to do this. Oh dear God. Right. Yeah. Alright, let's put some in there. This is not looking good, is it? It's looking kind of unpleasant. Just attack of the zombie man, and not gonna spend to, let's just turn up the opacity rather than fit. Okay, so here we have this horribly ugly looking drawing now with really horrible looking shading. That's so why doesn't this look good? I mean, hypothetically seems like the right thing to do, to go darker versions of all the colours you've used, right? That seems like it ought to work, and yet it doesn't, because that's not really how light works. If hypothetically we were in a place that had no ambient light whatsoever, this might actually be kind of accurate. You would get just these darker shadows on the character. They would just be darker versions of, if I just change this to like, oops, that's the wrong way, okay. So we'll turn this version, right, that gives us a better sort of idea. So in this situation we have an imaginary scenario in which the ambient light, or the direct light, has no colour, and the ambient light also has no colour, and also the skin is made of plastic and has no properties of being skin. Actually, skin doesn't actually work like this. So let's remove that shading from the skin first. Okay, let's just do this like this. The hair looks okay, even though hair actually isn't, hair doesn't work like this either. So the first thing we want to do to fix this is, you remember we mentioned the concept, or at least it said on this layer earlier, we had this word, subsurface scattering and translucency. So what is subsurface scattering? Let's just turn that back to multiply because it looks nicer. So subsurface scattering is, when we think about skin, skin is not a completely opaque material. It's actually translucent. Light passes through it. So if we think about a sheet of paper, so there's a grey, oops, that's where those things are. Okay, so here's a sheet of paper, and you've probably done this like when you were a kid and making like, maybe you made shadow puppets, or like, you know, shadow marionettes at school, and you put them behind behind this thing. So let's just pick. But when the light shines through the paper, let's get something like this. Okay, so light shining through paper looks like this, right? So then if we put like a little shadow puppet behind there, that's too big, it would look like this. Yeah, or if like the light was being shone onto the paper, it'd also look like that. But if the light was behind the paper too, it would look like that. Light shines through paper. And so we think of skin kind of works like that, only paper, the inside of paper is the same colour as the outside of paper. This is not the case for skin. Skin, the outside is, well, whatever your skin tone is, but the inside of skin, well, the inside of skin is red. So what happens when light shines through something that is red? Well, firstly, the thing that's happening is that the light is this direct light that's coming from this direction and is presumably white. White light coming from roughly this direction, from how we've painted the shadows, is being blocked by the skin. But some of the light is travelling through the skin and coming out the other side. And when it goes through the skin, it's picking up a red colour. So what we want to do to shade this skin is we're actually going to go diagonally, so we're a little bit, sometimes you'll want to be more and sometimes you'll want to be less saturated with that colour, but as a general rule you want it to move towards red because it's picking up. Oh, that looks, doesn't that look a bit nicer and more like skin? Oh, hey, that he doesn't look like a zombie anymore. Whoa, what is this magic? This is the magic of colour ramping and subsurface scattering. So let's just put in, do a little bit of a better job on the shadows this time. Like this, and yeah, that's nicer. Suddenly, even though the other objects are still shaded with that that kind of just going straight down kind of towards grey, towards black, just changing how we shade the skin has immediately given us a more pleasing look to the shadows, because suddenly it's shaded closer to skin, because skin has these kind of reddish shadows. They're always tinged towards red in some way. So yeah, so that's a nice way to make the skin look. If we had another light coming from behind him at this point, so let's say there's a light here, okay, and it's shining through his ear, you would get a very distinctive effect on the ear, which would be, let's just find his skin tone again, you would get this bright, quite a bright pink shining through the thinner parts of the ear like that, and that would be because the light is shining through. You would also see the same phenomenon if light was shining, say if we were doing a profile image and their nose was in profile on this with the sun, you would probably get similar effect. You can see the same effect if you hold your hand up in front of a bright light. You'll see these bright pinkish colours coming through. Less so if you are I'm extremely transparent due to the fact that I'm a very pale white person, but the effect is not completely unobservable on people who have darker skin tones. You will notice that when you hold your hand up to the light, you get these reddish colours shining through, particularly the thin bits of skin in between your fingers, the tips of your fingers, that kind of thing, and it happens with people's ears as well. So this is our first thing that we learn about colour ramping, that it's useful for skin. So we've got like so my skin tone is very pale and it's quite a pinkish one, and so it would be like maybe this, I'd say, and typically kind of ginger in that I blush very easily, so we'll push that towards that, a bit like that, and we would use like this kind of colour to shade it, which gives us maybe I'd make that skin tone a little bit less pink. Let's push it a bit, but not too far towards orange. Yeah. Oh, that barely made a difference. Let's see. Try some. Go a bit further. It's quite hard to judge. You don't want to make it too yellow, but if you get that, that looks quite nice. And let's try a darker skin tone, because one of the main problems I see with these kinds of tutorials where they talk about skin tone is they tend to focus rather too much on white people, and it's like there are plenty of tutorials about white people, and it's not like this phenomenon is solely one that is observable on white people. So you might do something like that. We can go darker, because oh, that's a really nice colour. So you go darker, push it towards red, and you can get these lovely warm looking skin tones just by doing that. It's as simple as that. Budge it a little bit towards red and you're good to go. So let's remove this shadow layer and let's get out of the shadow world and go into a beautiful sunny day. Whoa, look at that, there is not a cloud in the sky on this bright sunny day, and that is lovely. I'm going to bump that down a little bit so we can see what we're doing more. So in this situation, this is the most common situation we have going on for shading images, is the assumption that the ambient colour of light everywhere is blue. Why is the ambient colour of light generally blue? Well, it's because light has wavelengths. You probably learned this in school. The shortest wavelength is red, the longest wavelength is blue. This means that blue light goes through the atmosphere better and also through water. So if so the reason the surface of water looks blue is because it's reflecting light from the sky. But the reason when you're underwater and you look up through the water and it looks blue is because blue light passes through things better than red light, which is something that causes the atmosphere to scatter blue light everywhere. Alright, so there is blue is everywhere. I've run out of space. Okay, so let's assume that blue is everywhere, okay? That is the one thing we want to take away from this. So, assuming that blue is everywhere and that we have sunlight coming from this direction. Now let's assume that sunlight is it's yellowish white, right? That's a general sort of agreed. Like, sunlight is white-ish, but we like to think of it as being it's a bit yellow. So let's assume that we have the yellowish white sunlight coming from this direction, and then the yellowish white sunlight is being blocked by this doofus here, and this cube, and this sphere, which means that the light that is coming into the shadows, because if it was a perfect shadow, like, let's go back into the shadow world for a second and let's remove this, oops, and let's keep that, and let's just make a new layer. If there was absolutely no light coming, imagine there is no ambient light whatsoever, the object would get, all light on this side would be completely blocked out. It would be completely blacked out on the sides of the object that were not facing the light directly. You just would not be able to see them in the slightest. They would effectively become completely invisible like this. So this would be like hidden, and you like, yeah, and like this, and yeah, this is not a thing we often see. You may see like a slightly more stylized representation of this in, say, like comics, like American comics. You'll see like this kind of heavy black shading sometimes used where people are completely in shadow, but you will rarely see this in real life with perfect complete black shadows with absolutely no light at all being shed from the other side, because in real life that kind of situation rarely happens because light bounces around. So usually there is something in the surroundings for light to be bouncing off, and this creates what we'd call ambient light. So let's assume that there is ambient light and that it is blue. So what happens to our yellow sphere in this case? It's green. It's green. It's gonna get green. Well, this is interesting already. Okay, it's green. Green shadow on the yellow sphere. Blue. Well, this one's easy enough because it's already blue. So this one, actually, things don't change. I'm actually going to make it more a higher amount of saturation of the blue to get that a really nice like blue colour. Or we could even, let's nudge the blue towards, I'm going to desaturate that a bit because royal blue can be really, oh, that looks, oh, look at that. That's pretty. Okay, let's go a little bit out of that for this side, so it's a bit less. Okay. Okay, so, well, this is looking nice already. So let's take this red shirt. So that needs to move towards blue. Let's jump to the other end of the red spectrum. So what is towards blue from red? Purple. Interesting. I'm gonna, but also grey, because grey is really useful for shading things or putting light onto things. That's too light. Shading or putting light onto things that are at the other end of the colour spectrum. Using purple, using grey for that is a really good idea for when you're painting. I know I just said not to use grey to shade, but you can use grey, it's just you have to be careful where you use grey. It's a really good colour for acting as a go-between between two colours at the opposite end of the spectrum, which I'll hopefully be able to talk about in a little bit. Now the skin, we know, actually let's do the hair first. We know that we want to move down a bit, and well, blue's that way, but that won't look very nice, and hair is translucent and we want it to look warm in colour. So we're going to nudge it towards red, because rather than nudging it through yellow, we'll get a better look by nudging it, pretending we were up here rather than here. In fact, if we could remember that this and this are linked, so if you keep going down this way you'll end up here. So we want to go this way, like that. No, shit, I didn't mean to do. I'm sorry. That was not the intended direction there. Okay, let's do that. And again. Already we're getting a look to this image that is a lot warmer, a lot more vibrant and lively than the previous one. It looks nicer to look at and kind of more realistic and like just all around nicer. So we remember that we've got the skin here. We can just do exactly the same as before and just go straight towards red with this, because again, going towards red is already going towards purple or blue in this case from where we are on the spectrum. So let's do this. Easy job. That looks nice. Let's quickly, of course, obviously if I was like doing a proper piece of this I would spend a bit more time on this shading, getting it looking really nice. Let's, okay, let's just I might put some proper shadow down the nose there, like that, upper lip, and we could just put that whole face in shadow, that's easier. Okay, that's looking pretty nice. Okay, I'll give him a bit of shadow on those collarbones. There we go. Okay, so even though it's still not a fantastic image going on here, we already have a better look overall going on. I'm going to nudge this down a bit further. Where are we? Here we are, this layer. Right, so we've got this this image, and the next thing I would do would be to consider adding some highlights. So the highlights, we're going to go the opposite way. We're going to go towards yellow, so in this case this blue moves towards cyan. Weirdly, whenever we learn like rainbow colours in when we're little, we miss out cyan. We just have blue as... In fact, one of the problems with how we learn colours when we're little is that we learn... Isaac Newton had an obsession with the number 7 because because 7 was like this holy number, so he tried desperately to make it fit the number of colours he could see fit into the number 7. So he said, oh yeah, okay, so there are 7 colours because 7 is this holy number, and they are red, orange, yellow, I'll just grab that yellow for this, yellow, green. Look at this, look at the size of the green spectrum, and tell why is there only one green on our rainbow? Then blue, just blue, but then indigo and violet. Okay, so let's say that's violet. Okay, so this is what Isaac Newton, I believe it was, said that the colours are of the rainbow. And woo, little gay flag there, nice, I appreciate it. So let's be a bit more like precise here. Really, what can we see? We've got red, orange, okay, red, orange. Really, these aren't specific colours, like it's more like it's a spectrum. They blur into each other. We just use like the names to help us differentiate. Then we've got like, let's say lime. Then I would say like this kind of foresty green, I would consider a colour on the spectrum. I would then say that you've got teal. Teal, I think, should... Ooh, no, that looks too close because it's too close in value. I'm going to jump it up here a bit. I don't know, maybe not. Let's just jump to cyan then, because cyan, we can at least agree, cyan or turquoise should be its own colour, really. Okay, so cyan, royal blue, which is that incredibly intense blue, purple, I'm going to go like right in the middle for purple, magenta, and then I'd say that's that, because then we're really kind of back round to red again, roughly. Yeah, that's more like it. So that's a more sort of, to me that's a better representation of the colours of the rainbow. And okay, so let's get back to doing this anyway. So we've got like a yellowish coloured sunlight coming onto this guy, so let's do some nice yellowish light highlights on him, like this. So this is where the skin, the surface of the skin is like reflecting back some light, because skin is kind of shiny. It has specularity, as we might call it. Another thing I'd probably do be to bump down, because again, shadows on skin, you get they have some light in them coming through from like light that is passing through the skin, so they don't tend to look black or grey. They tend to look like reddish. There's can tend to be warm colours in there. Let's just... And we're only really just reaching a time period where game graphics can produce a look that is pleasant for these things, because we get like we have subsurface scattering shaders now for video games, which create that's way too shiny. But I might like... You notice that I haven't done the eyes white. Those of you who've watched previous videos I've done will probably remember that I said to never ever make the white of the eyes just pure white as the base colour, because it will look terrible. Just don't. Okay, so we've got this kind of roughly shaded dude going on here. Let's give him green eyes. Why not? Like a hazily colour. People with green eyes don't tend to have like... They don't tend to be like bright green like you see in anime and things. Okay, let's do that. And we want a dark colour for the inside of his eyes, and since the ambient light is blue, let's use a blue colour because it'll look a bit nicer. Alright, let's use a bit of that on those teeth. Okay, so we've got an okay looking sort of image there. The lighting's not great. I might put a bit of a highlight on the hair because hair is very shiny, reflects a lot of light. There we go, like that. Okay, so let's assume that there is some light that is bouncing off the surroundings onto the other side of him, which will help kind of define the shape. So any light that bounces off these surroundings is going to come back blue because the surroundings are blue. So something off here is blue and it's bouncing blue light back onto us. Alright. So this is one of the biggest problems that we get when somebody wants to bounce blue light onto somebody and they're like, well, we've got like orange skin and there's blue light shining on it, so green. Yeah, okay, let's do that. Oh no, oh no. Oh no, this looks terrible. Why does it look terrible? Because light is complicated. I'm not a physicist, I couldn't tell you. So what you want to do here, you remember I mentioned grey earlier for making... So if you use grey, it looks, compared to the skin colour, it looks blue. So this is a much better way to make it so you've got blue light bouncing onto skin, is to use grey. It works much better. You can also use the same technique for yellow or orange, any warm colour that has cool light bouncing on it. First thing you should try is probably grey. With the red we could probably get away with like a purple, like this. Let's try. Yeah, that looks passable. You'd want to like experiment with this a bit yourself. Like different pictures you do will look better with different things. Let's add a bit of a nice warm orange onto that shirt there where the sun is shining on it, because you can use orange to shade yellow and to highlight red. How does that work? So yellow is the colour that has the highest value. Okay, and by value we mean how light or dark it is. So let's just let's remove everything and go back to this white and make a new layer. Okay, right, so if actually, where was... Right, let's just do a quick spectrum. So we've got... So yellow in the middle here. We'll do a quick yellow, orange, red, green, well, lime, forest green, cyan, royal blue, purple, magenta, and back to red again at the other end. Alright, so you may be noticing something already about these colours, and it'll become more obvious when we desaturate. So they're all actually the same value, these ones, because they were all from the same part of the colour wheel. But that's not how they look here, because this blue here, this blue, that looks a lot darker, doesn't it? And this looks fairly dark, and these ones particularly look quite dark, whereas these other ones, like orange, yellow, these look quite light, and this looks fairly light, and this one. So some colours look lighter than others to the naked eye, even though they're actually not, which is a little confusing. It's just to do with how the eye works, how the eye perceives colour. But you can take advantage of this as an artist, and you can use orange as a means to shade yellow, and it looks really nice and vibrant. So do that, we get this lovely looking yellow colour, and you can also then do the same with orange. You can use red to shade orange, because red to the eye appears to be darker than orange. You can also do exactly what we did before and use green to shade yellow, because green also appears to be darker than yellow. I do recommend also changing the value as well. So let's shade this yellow, and we'll drop the value a bit as well maybe, and we'll get this nice sort of shaded. Looks a bit murky though. It looked nicer with the really bright zingy orange there. A lot of artists will make a big deal about how you should always check your values. Oh, values, values, values. And I don't necessarily agree, because I feel like this ignores the way that the eye perceives light. Oh, that's actually looking... This is the version without our line art on it, and it's actually starting to look pretty decent over here. Like, ooh, that's the wrong layer. With just a little bit more work, that's moving towards being like a decent looking image overall. It's not great, I wouldn't like put it on a wall or anything, but considering it was done in a very short time period and like just as a demonstration, it doesn't actually look that bad. So that is pretty much all I can think of to say about the concept of colour ramping and basic light and shading and things. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you want to help me fund doing more tutorials like this, you could consider my Patreon. You could donate to that, and then there would be more chilled out, and that would be great. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. Feel free to leave comments, subscribe, like. Apparently that helps me by helping more people find this video. If you want to see other things, other tutorials on specific things, or if you have comments or questions about this, like, oh, in this situation what would I do then, feel free to leave those. I might just answer them in the comments, or if they're particularly interesting or complicated or things other people would want to know, I'll probably make further videos about those things that you can watch and find out about them. So thanks for watching, everybody. Join us next time for more Chilled Out. See you then.